who's to say that Terence Crawford would make more money fighting Canelo than he would make fighting anyone else? See, this is your normal assumption based on the people who fight Canelo. Caleb Plant made $10 million fighting Canelo Alvarez, but that was more money than he's ever made in his career. Terence Crawford made $10 million fighting David Avenesian. Even with this Jamel Charlo, I keep hearing people saying Jamel made $25 million. Jamel didn't make no damn $25 million. Wasn't $25 million there to make. The math ain't mathing. They did about 700,000 pay-per-view buys. Now let's do the quick math on this. $89 a pop. We go round it up. So we go add $10 to 100. That's $70 million. Typically, Showtime takes 20%. That's $14 million. We are already down at what, 56? And Canelo's taking about 50 of that. And the TV station that hosts it normally take a 10%. So Comcast, Spectrum, Time Warner, all these people, right? So if you bought it through them, then they take 10%. So we're looking at what, $49 million? That's less than what Canelo made. We have to add in the gate, and just says a $20 million gate, which I haven't heard that. But $20 million gate. And let's add in some endorsements, other back end money. Let's add in about another, what we about 69. Let's add in like another 11 million. So we're at 80. Ain't nobody else been paid. The investors haven't been paid. Whoever the investors are. If it's just Showtime, then I doubt they want more than just that 20% cut. But Al Heyman hadn't been paid. Tom Brown hasn't been paid. None of the ring girls been paid. The venue hasn't been paid. The judges, plural, hasn't been paid. The undercard hasn't been paid. The referees haven't been paid. The people singing the national anthem haven't been paid. Whether it's Bruce Buffer or Michael Buffer, who the announcer, they haven't been paid. If the press tour costs a certain amount of money, they haven't recouped on that. There ain't no $25 million to give Jamel Charlo. He probably made about what Caleb Plant made. Probably anywhere from $10 to maybe $12 million if he's lucky. Even if there were some residual pay-per-view buys on the back end, you gotta understand Canelo's dipping in that pot probably 80-20 or 90-10. He's taking even more money. We just automatically assume, and a lot of guys do this, right? I'll blend in another thought with this too. A lot of people assume if you're fighting the cash cow, then you're just making all this money. But if the cash cow demands so much of the money, then there's not a lot left over for the other guy. Very similar with Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. It's just you guys can't wrap your brain around it. When Shakur Stevenson is essentially telling you, I get paid about $3 million a fight. The money that I was offered, the 25% that I was offered versus Devin Haney was less than what I've been making. And if we think about that fight, that's about a $10 million fight. So what, about $2.5 million, which is $500,000 less than what he's typically making, right? Even though that's a big fight, he's making less than what he would make versus Edwin Dos Santos. Because Edwin Dos Santos, if they got the Frank Martin deal, if that's a $4 million fight, which is pretty much what he said, he's keeping 3 and Dos Santos making 1. So he's making more to fight Edwin Dos Santos than to fight Devin Haney. And it'll be very similar with Errol Spence versus Crawford and Crawford versus or Canelo versus Crawford, because we're going to put the A sides first, right? It'll be very similar because Crawford probably made upwards of $20 plus $25 million fighting Errol Spence given the split. And I don't know if there's going to be $25 million to fight Canelo. A lot of people are not even sold on the fight. The fight would have to exceed probably about $1.2 to $1.3 million for there to be $25 million to fight. Million buys. Probably closer to 1.5 for there to be $25 million to pay Terence Crawford based on the split and Canelo's guaranteed $50 million. Right? Even when we hear about Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, we hear what, $30 million a piece or somewhere like that. Okay, that's 60 combined roughly, right? So around 60 combined. Canelo's making that damn near by itself. They did 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. The math ain't math, and it ain't that much money. They would have to do some hell of a numbers. And before I get out of here, Terence Crawford was challenging himself. I know a lot of you guys are not used to that in boxing, right? So a lot of you you shaming the fans and oh, we're delusional and all the rest. If he loses, he loses. That's boxing. If he gets in there and get knocked out, then he gets knocked out. But I would rather see the fight than not see the fight. Shout out to Mr. Boxing today. He the one said that a long time ago, and it just makes, when it comes to boxing, that's just it just makes the most sense. I would rather see the fight than not see the fight. Okay? So, there's only two undisputed fighters right now. I hope you know this. There's only two. There's Canelo and there's Terence Crawford. Those are the only two guys that are undisputed. So if Crawford wants to be 3 times undisputed, then guess who he has to fight? You guessed it, Canelo. It's not like he just wants to fight him to cash out. He's probably going to make more money in the Errol Spence rematch, which is probably going to be a pay cut from the first one, than he would make fighting Canelo, because Canelo demands such a big portion of that pot. And if they exceed a certain amount of number, Canelo's probably 80-20 in them, 90-10 in them on the back end. So there's not a lot of money for Terence Crawford to make that kind of money. With him and Errol Spence, even though it's a smaller fight, he's getting a bigger portion of a smaller pot. And so when you add it up, Canelo is not a cash out for Terence Crawford. Crawford probably could damn near make that money going to Australia with his newfound popularity and fighting Tim Tszyu. He probably can pull in 15 to 18 fighting Tim Tszyu. And if that do good, exceed, which would probably be a lower number to exceed, he's probably going to get a larger chunk of those pay-per-view buys if it's a pay-per-view on the back end. He probably can pull in about $20 million fighting Tim Tszyu, which is a much easier, winnable fight. But he wants to be 3-time undisputed. Or he wanted to, because that doesn't seem realistic, because, now the sanctioning bodies are doing some stuff with, on the back end. But that's what this is about. It's not a cash-out fight. And we're not delusional for asking for the fight. That's what boxing fans do. We're supposed to want to see the people fight. All right? It does nothing for me as a boxing fan for Terence Crawford to just retire and sail off into the sunset. He's my favorite fighter because I like to see him fight. Now, granted, he's done things in the community and things like that. Well, yeah, I want to see him win now after knowing his personal story. But initially, I just saw a guy who could fight